One of the most prolific and profound artists of our times is Yusef Lateef, and he's with us on the phone from Massachusetts, right?
Yes.
Welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
The approach that you bring to music and the depth in your artistry is something that really needs to be rediscovered by generations. I'd like to ask you about your creative process, and I'll start by asking you, you were born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. What was your earliest exposure to music?
I guess it was my father used to sing, not professionally, but he had a beautiful tenor voice, and that was my first exposure. And my mother played piano by ear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you get some of her musical talents? Are you able to pick out notes?
Well, I didn't, not at the time, but I was definitely influenced.
Right. Later, you moved to Detroit. What was the impact that the city of Detroit had on your artistic vision?
Well, there were many influences in New York. The earliest influence was a trumpet player named Buddy Bell and a tenor saxophonist named Al Farish. They played in the pit band at the Arcady Theater in Detroit. And I used to sit right in front of them and listen to them play, and also observe the theatrics that went on the stage.
Right. Your rise to fame in jazz was really the golden era of experimentation in music. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I agree with everything. But the word jazz is an ambiguous term.
Right, right.
And I found out later that the music really is music which comes from the physical and the mental and spiritual self, which is contained in the word I coined called autophysio-psychic music. And now, if you frame it with that term, perhaps I can answer you.
Okay. Then, well, let's go back into how you started your career and how you go into the realm that became audio-physio-psychic music. And your blending of genres, I would guess, was definitely part of that.
Yes, well, it began, of course, I started playing the alto saxophone in high school. And that was the beginning of the first instrument that I had. And, of course, there were influences in Detroit, local influences. There are people like, with a high school band I played with, the Matthew Rucker Band, and that's mentioned in my autobiography, The Gentle Giant. And there were itinerant musicians who would come to Detroit every week in two places. One was the Greystone Ballroom, where I heard Count Basie and Jimmy Lunsford, Andy Kirk for the first time, and every week there was a dance, and one of the big bands of that period would appear there. And also there was the Paradise Theater, where there would be a stage show every week, and there I heard people like Billy Eckstein, Tiny Bradshaw, Earl Hines, you name it. And of course that was a continuous flow of influences, and there were local musicians also that I was influenced by, like, for example, Barry Harris, who they call him the high priest of music in Detroit. I studied with him, and of course there was Kenny Burrell, he was younger, and Paul Chambers lived down the street from me. Doug Watkins also was an influence, and Roy Brooks, also Louis Hayes, and there was the Jones brothers, Thad Jones and Hank Jones would come down from, I think it was Pontiac, they would come down and perform with us. So there was a galore of influences,
right,
itinerant influences and local influences in Detroit.
Was the music basically being learned from each other, or were people pulling influences from different countries or maybe different styles of music that they had heard?
Well, I think we learned it from each other. It was an exchange of knowledge going on constantly. In fact, I remember Roy Brooks, that he rented a house where we could play after hours, and this exchange would go on year in and year out.
It was definitely a wonderful time to be a musician. I'm going to throw out what I think from what I've learned from listening to you and your contemporaries in autophysio-psychic music,
Yes.
it seems to me when someone decides to use music to express themselves, that's the mental. It kind of starts out with a passion. Their heart is into it, and they have a message they want to get out or an expression they need to bring to fruition. And then the physical would be learning their chops and learning their craft and learning the actual instrument that they have.
Yes.
And when those two things balance out, and you're not just playing to get your point across or just playing to show off your chops, when those two kind of get digested through the soul, that's the true expression that comes out in autophysio-psychic music. Am I close?
Yeah, I concur. I think one of the romances of American history is the music of the African Americans. Since 1865, since the slavery was abolished in America, the musicians, the African Americans, taught themselves how to play this music, and you could call it an occupational tradition, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Learning the music, like the history says that John Philip Sousa's band discarded the instruments, the old broken instruments, on the dump heaps after the Civil War, and the slaves picked these instruments up and taught themselves to play them, in spite of not being admitted in schools at that time. And it's an occupational music, if you will. It began that way, but now one can say that it's one of the most viral forms of culture created in America, the music of the African Americans.
And definitely the cornerstone of all of our modern music.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I wanted to ask you about the influence of Eastern musics in your particular compositions and where that came from. Well,
that began when I made my first album with my group in 1956 for Savoy Records. I realized if I was to continue recording, I would have to expand the canvas of my presentations. And therefrom, I concentrated on looking into the musical pedagogy and the substance of other cultures. For example, I studied with Sajdev, an Indian flute player from India, and I studied the ragas, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I also studied the music of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen of Germany, and the music of China. Confucius, he taught music. I don't know if you were aware of that.
I wasn't.
It was one of his qualities. And so I spent many hours in the main library there in Detroit studying the music of other cultures. And I also I became a maker of flutes, bamboo flutes, which I introduced into our music. And I spent 4 years in Nigeria as a research fellow at the Center for Nigerian Cultural Studies. And I did research into the Fulani flute, which is called a sariwa, which was originally made from the wood of a baguda tree. And before I left Nigeria, we were making it out of glass and out of copper. And I wrote a fingering chart for it also. And so I introduced, it's called an algae, And then I found out while in Nigeria that the emir had court musicians, and they had instruments like the algaita, which is a double reed instrument, sounds similar to the English one. So I introduced the algaita into my music. I remember a piece called Sister Mamie. I used that. And also a Taiwan flute. I introduced that in an album called Eastern Sounds.
Right.
And I used also the oboe. And I played, perhaps I was the first one to play the blues on the oboe.
I believe, yeah. And you also, The Blue, Yusef Lateef, was an album that touched me because you took the the style and the pattern of the blues,
Yes.
and made it universal in both its being played and the stories that it told. It's an amazing album.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, the blues is one of the most lucrative musical forms that was born in America, and it came from the cotton fields of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it began with the field hollers, and the blues developed in several forms. In the 12-measure form, there's the 16-measure form blues, there's the modal blues. That's 3 forms I know of.
I think it's fascinating that all of your music shows growth. To this day, are you 82?
86.
86 years old, you continue to grow, and you continue to explore, and every day, music, I'm guessing, inspires and excites you. I would love to see some of the people who are making music today be able to capture that approach. And they can go to yuseflateef.com and not only find out more about your career, but also hear your music, look at your education. Your education has continued on for decades, and I wanted to go through a little bit about that and how that's also shaped your artistic vision.
Oh, sure.
You went to Wayne State University and you studied...
I took courses at Wayne State University.
Mm-hmm.
Between 1950 and 1960. And then I moved to New York in 1960. I joined Cannonball Adderley in 61. Right. I worked with him for 2 years, 62. And then 63, I enrolled in the Manhattan School of Music in a degree program where I majored in flute, and I got a bachelor's degree. A year later, I received my master's in music education. That was in 1971. I entered the new school for social research, and I studied philosophy for a year. I studied the pre-Socratics, the existentialists, and the pragmatists. Then in 72, I was offered entrance into a doctoral program in education at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And by 1975, I got my degree in education, my doctorate from the University of Massachusetts.
What an accomplishment. There had to be so many times. I mean, if I could spend all day with you, I would, just talking about adversity and obstacles and times when you didn't want to go on. I'm sure they came. It's human nature. And
yes.
What's the drive that kept you going and kept you fulfilling this life that you've led?
Well, I embraced the religion of Islam through the Ahmadiyya movement in Islam. And there's a saying, there are a couple of sayings that rested in my heart, and one is, seek knowledge even if it's in China. The second one was, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And I embraced that ideology, and that's had lots to do with what kept me moving in the world of education and seeking knowledge. And it's so gratifying to learn that which one does not know, and also learning how to help others. I remember the band we used to play for the orphans when we'd go to different cities, California, Michigan, etc. And we just play for free because the teachings of Islam says, beware of your treatment of orphans. And so I have a warm spot in my heart for the orphans. And that's so gratifying to try to help someone's life be a little brighter.
How does your religious belief, Ahmadiyya and Islam, differ from maybe how the average American is viewing Islam at this time in our lives?
Well, to me, the teachings that I embrace in the Ahmadiyya movement, which was formed by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, India, the essence of the practice of Islam brings one to the ideology of love for all and hatred for none. It's a religion of love and compassion for all of humanity. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. And my father and mother taught me the importance of love, and the Ahmadiyya movement teaches love for all humanity. It's the universal commitment to the love of all human beings and things, and that was the attraction for me.
Forgiveness, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely.
And do you feel that some people from the fundamentalist Islam movement are mistaking maybe the message? Other people are receiving it in the wrong way as well.
Yeah, that's it happens that way, and
because all of your music and all of your works have been kind of centered in peace and love. And I think that when you, as an educator, anybody that must have taken a class with you had to have been moved. Do you keep in touch with any of the students that you've taught that went on to careers in music?
Yes, I do. I have, let me see, several students. One student went to England to work on his doctorate in archaeology. And he's also a talented violinist. I have another student who got their master's recently from New York University, and they plan to go on for a doctorate later. Another student is at UCLA now working on a master's in music. And I have an Armenian student who is now on tour in Europe with a group, and he plans to come and further his education. And I'm very proud of him.
I bet. It's got to be very rewarding.
Yeah, it's rewarding, yeah. If I can help a person improve their life, that's my pay right there.
Yeah, right on. I want to talk about your published works. Not only do you have some musical composition books and theory books, such as the Flute Book of the Blues.
And, I started my own record company in 92. It's called YAL Records. And I have over 25 CDs that are being digitally presented to whoever wants to purchase on Apple iTunes Music Store.
Okay.
And that's very gratifying. Recently I did an album with two French musicians, the Belmondo brothers, Lionel Belmondo and Stéphane Belmondo. It was a 13-piece group, and they recorded some of my old music, like a tune named after my daughter, Iqbal, my late daughter, and the song called Morning, that was recorded for Savoy Records in '56. And I've done two tours with him in France and Spain and Monaco recently. I like to mention I've written a piano concerto, but it hasn't been performed yet. And recently I started on my second symphony.
You're going to make us feel bad. Some of us we're 40 years old. It's all we can do to get to the weekend, and here you're writing symphonies. Well, God bless that. So now, what does the day entail for Yusef Lateef? You wake up.
I'm busy.
I bet you are.
I always have something to do.
And where does it, like, when you start a piece of music, when you decide I'm going to write a piano concert, or I'm going to write a piece of music here, where does that influence come from? What's the impetus?
Well, they trained me at the Manhattan School of Music to know what a symphony is a sonata allegro form, etc. And so I said, now is my time to exercise some of the things I've learned in school,
Right. Well, here you go.
And so that's why I do these things. I may never hear them. Don Bird said, you may not never hear them, but at least they'll be here for posterity,
You've been on over 100 wonderful recordings. You've played with wonderful, magical musicians in your lifetime, and you continue every day to discover new things, whether you're writing literature or music books or concerts. I wanted to throw some names at you, and just I know it's not fair to sum them up in just a few words, but if I could just get a few thoughts from some of your contemporaries from you, okay?
Sure.
Miles Davis.
Oh, I see. That's a good question. Well, when I think of Miles, I think of one of the linchpins of inspiration who advanced the music of African American musicians. He is even an educator because he presented what can happen as a result of the accumulation of technique and the refinement of methods,
right?
Presentations.
Yeah, like you, there's a lot of restraint in his playing. Every time he speaks through an instrument, it's meaningful, and every note counts.
Yes, it was as though he was in search of the most inviting kind of musical expression each time he played.
Charles Mingus.
Oh, yeah. He was a very creative individual. I had the pleasure of working with him in 1960. He was inspiring. He was an original thinker. He was one who would go deep into the intuition to process his music. And I think that's one of the most wonderful things that an artist can have is his intuition, to use it. And Mingus had that.
How about Elvin Jones, who we lost recently?
Oh, he was a dynamic percussionist. I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to hear him and John Coltrane.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was an unusual listening period to sit and listen to the group.
Right. I have an album by them, Meditations, which it's really evident that they're speaking through their instruments to each other.
Obviously, yes, absolutely.
Dizzy Gillespie, who was always, when I was a kid, my mother would always call me to watch Dizzy play, and the first thing that drew a young boy to watching this man was his giant cheeks when he would blow his horn, and also his wonderful disposition. He seemed like he was always so happy.
Yeah, he was not only happy, he was also a kind man. And he was kind to the musicians. I remember when I joined him in 1948, I joined him he sent me a ticket to Chicago. I was in Chicago then. I flew to L.A. and that coming fall we were to play in Detroit, and I was going home to play with the great Dizzy Gillespie. And I didn't have an overcoat, and he had a big Mackinac overcoat with a big mouton collar, and he just gave it to me. And I was so grateful. He was a very kind man.
It's the kind of stuff you don't forget.
No, that's why I haven't forgotten. It was an act of kindness,
Well, your music has touched so many, and so have your teachings. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your music and for your inspiration. God bless.
Oh, thank you. May God bless you, and remember me in your prayers. I'd appreciate it.
Well, thank you. That was an incredible interview.
Yeah, thank you for letting me speak to you and your audience.
I could listen to you speak all day. Your music has always touched me so much. And I'm not going to fawn on you, but I just want to tell you that it's you're a wonderful inspiration to my artistry. Doing my
thank
thing.
you.
Be well, and if you don't mind, I'll stay in touch.
Okay, no, please do.
Okay, my friend.
All right, brother.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.